We all know the myth of the Minotaur, the monstrous bullman lurking within a labyrinth of stone. But what if this ancient story has been misunderstood for thousands of years? What if the monster was not the one with the head of a bull, but those who created him? This is not just a tale of a hero and a beast. It's a story about fear, power, and the walls we build. Our story begins not in the labyrinth, but in the glittering, powerful court of King Minos on Crete. To secure his divine right to rule, Minos prayed to Poseidon for a sign from the depths. The sea god answered, sending a magnificent, pure white bull from the crashing waves. This bull was a symbol of ultimate power and divine favor, a testament to Minos's authority. But consumed by greed, Minos broke his sacred vow to sacrifice the beautiful animal back to Poseidon. He kept the bull for himself, an act of supreme arrogance that would have terrible consequences. The gods do not take kindly to being cheated, and divine punishment is often poetic and cruel. To enact his revenge, Poseidon inflicted a twisted, unnatural desire upon Queen Pasiphaë. The queen, a mortal woman, was cursed with an overwhelming passion for the majestic white bull. This was not a simple curse. It was a psychological torment designed to shatter a royal family. Helpless against the divine compulsion, Pasiphaë sought the help of the master craftsman, Daedalus. Daedalus, a genius trapped in the service of a king, was forced to enable this horrific affair. He constructed a hollow wooden cow, a deceptive shell so realistic it could fool a god's creation. From this unnatural and desperate union, a child was born. But he was not a child of love. He was a living, breathing symbol of a king's sin and a queen's divine punishment. They named him Asterion, the Starry One, a beautiful name for a child with a tragic fate. But to the world, he would only ever be known as the Minotaur, the Bull of Minos. He was neither fully man nor fully beast, but a unique consciousness trapped between two worlds. As he grew, his body became more powerful, his bull-headed form more intimidating and fearsome. He was a walking, breathing reminder of Minos's shame and the queen's unspeakable transgression. The king could not bear the sight of him, a constant, living accusation of his own moral failure. But was Asterion truly a monster from birth, or simply an innocent child born into a cruel circumstance? Did he possess a savage, murderous instinct, or was he a confused soul, feared for his appearance? We are never told of his childhood, his thoughts, or his desires, only that he was different. Society, represented by Minos, had already passed its judgment. He was a monster to be contained. The solution to this problem was as brilliant as it was cruel. The inescapable labyrinth. Daedalus was once again commanded to use his genius, not to create life, but to build a prison. The labyrinth was not just a maze of stone. It was a masterpiece of psychological torment. It was a place of endless, twisting corridors, designed to break the spirit and confuse the mind. This was not a cage with bars, but a complex, architectural tomb for a single lonely soul. Asterion, the Minotaur, was cast inside, abandoned by the family that should have protected him. He became the labyrinth's prisoner, a ghost haunting the corridors of his own eternal confinement. But a prison, no matter how perfect, is useless without a purpose, without a function to serve. King Minos, a shrewd and ruthless politician, found a truly horrific use for his pet monster. When his son was killed in Athens, Minos demanded a terrible price for his vengeance and grief. Every 9 years, Athens was forced to send 7 young men and 7 young women as tribute. These 14 youths were not sent as guests or slaves. They were sent as sacrifices, as prey. They were thrown into the labyrinth, their lives forfeit to the creature trapped within its walls. This act transformed the Minotaur from a mere prisoner into an official, state-sanctioned monster. The narrative was set. The beast in the maze was a bloodthirsty predator that devoured the innocent. But let's pause and consider the reality of this situation from the Minotaur's perspective. He was a solitary being, left alone in a dark, confusing maze for years at a time. Then, suddenly, terrified, screaming strangers would be thrust into his solitary world. Were they there to help him, to harm him, or were they just as lost and frightened as he was? The myths speak of him devouring them, but was this an act of savage hunger or desperate self-defense? He had been dehumanized, starved of contact, and conditioned to see intruders as a threat. The real monster was the system that created this horrific scenario, pitting victim against victim. The king, safe outside the walls, used the Minotaur as a weapon of terror and political control. He became a symbol of Cretan power, a deterrent to any city that might think to challenge Minos. The monster in the maze was a convenient scapegoat for the king's own brutal and tyrannical rule. This cycle of violence continued until a hero from Athens, Theseus, volunteered as a tribute. Theseus, the son of a king, entered the labyrinth not as a victim, but as a hunter and a liberator. With the help of Ariadne's thread, another tool of Daedalus's genius, he navigated the maze. He found the Minotaur not in a frenzy, but in the heart of the labyrinth, its lair, its home. The confrontation was not between a man and a monster, but between a prince and a prince's shame. Theseus slew the Minotaur, an act celebrated as a great triumph of heroism over bestial evil. He followed the thread back to the entrance, a conqueror, leaving the labyrinth and its prisoner behind. But who truly was the hero, and who was the victim in this bloody, ancient story? Theseus was celebrated for killing a creature that was born from a god's curse and raised in a dungeon. The Minotaur never asked to be born, never asked to be imprisoned, and never asked to be a killer. He was a product of his circumstances, a living consequence of the cruelty and arrogance of others. He is the ultimate other, the being we label a monster because we cannot, or will not, understand him. His physical form was different, and for that, his humanity was stripped away, his consciousness ignored. In our modern world, we still create minotaurs and build labyrinths to hide them from view. We demonize the mentally ill, the socially outcast, those who look or think differently than we do. Our labyrinths are prisons, asylum systems, and the dark corners of society where we hide our monsters. We feed them with our fear and our prejudice, sacrificing understanding on the altar of convenience. The story of the Minotaur challenges us to question who the real architects of suffering are. It forces us to look at the King Minos in ourselves, at our capacity for cruelty and indifference. Are we building labyrinths to protect ourselves, or are we building them to hide our own sins? The myth endures not because of the monster, but because of the uncomfortable questions it asks us. It asks us to consider the nature of monstrosity and the very thin line between man and beast. Was the Minotaur a savage creature? Or was he a victim of a savage and unforgiving world? Perhaps the true labyrinth was not made of stone, but of the lies, fears, and prejudices of man. The Minotaur was trapped twice. First, by the walls of his prison, and then by the story we tell. He remains imprisoned in our collective memory, forever the monster, never the misunderstood son. To free him, we must re-examine the narrative and listen for the voice that history has silenced. We must acknowledge that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we create ourselves. The next time you hear a story about a monster, ask yourself, who is telling the tale and why? And remember the labyrinth's prisoner, a creature who was, perhaps, society's monster all along.